Hey everyone, and welcome back to English with Narayana. Today we're taking a deep dive into something I know a lot of you have asked about, uh, improving your pronunciation.
Yeah, pronunciation, it can be
It
tricky.
can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We've got this great article here called Improving Your English Pronunciation with some really interesting tips.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is that it starts by talking about how to train your ear
Before you even open your mouth.
before you even speak. Yeah, it's like step number one.
Okay, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? Like, how do you train your ear?
Well, it's all about like immersing yourself in the sounds of English, right?
Hmm.
So listening to podcasts like this one,
Of course.
audiobooks, movies, even like YouTube videos, the more you listen, the better your ear gets at like recognizing the different sounds and rhythms.
It's almost like you said, like learning a new song.
Exactly.
You have to hear it a bunch of times before you can start singing along.
Yeah, and then you can kind of anticipate what's coming next, and you start to internalize those sounds.
Then speaking of technology, I was really intrigued by this idea of using AI to help with pronunciation.
Oh, yeah. AI is amazing for this.
Because sometimes even if you're looking at a word, you're not really sure exactly how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Right.
So how can AI help?
Well, there are these AI tools that can generate speech for you,
Wow.
and it sounds supernatural. So you could like type in a word or even a phrase and then hear it spoken back to you with perfect pronunciation.
That's so cool. And you can even use that with flashcards, right?
Yeah. Imagine like you have your flashcards, you're studying vocabulary, and instead of just seeing the word, you can hear it too.
So you're not just like reading it in your head in a way that might be totally wrong. You're actually getting that correct sound.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about that is that it helps you to kind of internalize the sound of the word, not just the theory of how it's spelled or whatever.
So it's like building that muscle memory in your mouth.
Exactly. And speaking of muscle memory, the article also talks about this technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. What is that?
So shadowing is basically you listen to a native speaker and you try to mimic them as closely as possible, like you're their shadow.
Okay.
So you listen, you repeat, and then this is really important, you record yourself.
So scary.
It can be a little scary, but it's super helpful because then you can compare your pronunciation to the original.
It's like holding up a mirror to how you speak.
Yeah, you see those tiny little differences between how you think you sound and how you actually sound.
Like that.
And the more you practice, the better your mouth muscles get at forming those sounds correctly.
Well, and speaking of challenges,
Mm-hmm.
I know some English sounds are just harder than others, especially depending on where you're from and what your native language is. Like the article mentions, TH is a really tough one for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. TH, it gets every
Or the difference between R and L.
Oh, that.
And I know that V and W can be tricky for some people too.
Totally. Do you have any tips for those?
Well, they suggest this idea of exaggerate and then refine.
Exaggerate and refine.
So
Okay.
you basically start by really overemphasizing the sound, even if it feels silly,
Okay.
and then you gradually tone it down until it starts to sound more natural.
So you're training your mouth to like hit those extremes.
Right, and then you can kind of fine-tune it from there.
I like that.
Right.
It's like learning a dance move where you know it looks a little awkward at first,
Exactly.
but then it becomes more fluid with practice.
And I think that's the key with all of this, right?
Absolutely.
Consistent practice is so important.
And you know, they had some fun ideas in the article for how to practice,
Oh yeah, like what?
like talking to yourself in English.
Just narrate your life.
Yeah. Even if you're just like cooking dinner
I love that.
or reading aloud from a book.
Turning everyday activities into pronunciation practice. I like it.
And then, of course, there's always technology.
Right. There are some great apps out there these days.
Right. Yeah, like Elsa Speak or Speechling. They use speech recognition technology to listen to you and give you feedback on your pronunciation. It's almost like having a personal coach.
Right in your pocket.
Yeah.
So I guess the big takeaway here is that improving your pronunciation is a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely not a sprint,
It takes time, it takes dedication.
but it's so worth it.
It really is, because it can make such a huge difference in how confident you feel when you're speaking English.
Absolutely. And I think what stood out to me the most was that everyone's journey is going to be unique.
That's true.
Don't get discouraged if you don't sound perfect right away.
Yeah, don't be afraid to experiment, try different techniques.
And most importantly, have fun.
Exactly. Have fun with it, and before you know it, you'll be sounding more and more like a native speaker.
And who knows, maybe you'll even be the one giving pronunciation tips someday.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time on English with Narayana.
Bye!